Hello and welcome. I am so grateful you're here today. Just to make sure we're live and you can hear me, will you type where you're listening from or joining us from today in the chat feature? Hopefully you know how to open the chat, and be sure to tell us where you're logging in from. Rapid City, South Dakota, Silver Springs, Florida. A lot from Rapid City, South Dakota. I'll have to come visit sometime. I've never been. Elk Grove, California, Carson City. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. I hope you can hear me okay. We do have some construction occasionally happening in our office, so if you hear banging, we tried to settle it down for this next half hour, but you never know what can happen. All right, will you first do me a favor and switch your chat feature from all panelists to all panelists and attendees, or it might say everyone. If you'll trade that, I would love for everyone to see your comments, and then we can reply to each other and there can be a really great chat commentary going on. So is everyone able to do that? Change your settings to all panelists and attendees. Give me a thumbs up or a yep in the comments if you're able to do that. Great, thanks Lori. Thanks Michelle, Deborah, Jose. Perfect. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Jessica Smith. I am the substitute teacher trainer here at steady.org. I'm gonna press my next button and make sure these slides are gonna work. Okay, my picture is over there on the left. And these are my coworkers. Kelly is joining us. She's listening in, and Sam is listening in. He's probably hearing me in surround sound because we're actually social distancing in the office today. And then Jeff is our president and CEO. He's also the man behind the curtain as well. And he is my dad. So the topic of having a good relationship with your coworkers is very important to me. We want in our offices to all get along and see each other's perspective. And so I'm glad to be able to present on this topic because I have a lot of thoughts on it. And I want to tell you my goal for you today. My goal is to provide you with 2 ideas on improving a difficult interpersonal relationship. Hopefully that is a goal for you, a goal that you're okay with achieving today. Now, we're going to kind of go in a lot of different directions, and hopefully it'll tie together in the end. The title of the webinar is Increasing Positive Interactions, but there's a lot of things we have to do foundationally to make sure our interactions really are positive. And so that's where we're going to dive in first. All right, in the chat, I would love for you to just kind of think out loud with this question. What does a successful interpersonal relationship look like for you? And when it is successful, how do you feel? And we're talking about colleagues, we're talking about people who work for you. You can apply these strategies to family relationships as well. But my lens kind of is more professional interpersonal relationships. So there's mutual trust, mutual respect, being honest and open with each other. It feels easy. There's a lot of positive interactions, open communication. You can share opposing views without feeling defensive. I love that, Patricia. We're gonna hopefully talk a lot about getting there today. There's a give and take. You feel empowered. You look forward every day to working with people and you feel productive. It feels like a team, open and honest communication. All of these, I agree. And how do you feel in this successful interpersonal relationship? Feels like family. Kelly, I like that. You feel safe, you feel valued, you enjoy being at work. Yes. All of these feelings, there's no fear, we feel comfortable. I want to emphasize that especially during this month, next month, that these feelings are really important to spread. We want other people, we want to reduce fear for other people. We want to help people feel safe. And it's extra important right now. And if we can do it right now, it will go so much further in the long run. All right, thank you for sharing. My next slide, I want to know if you know who these two men are. Jen, you know who they are? Does anybody else? Lori, you don't know? Thanks for being honest. Gina doesn't know. Kim? Okay. I'm going to tell you, and you're going to be surprised about who they are. And they're actually friends. They look familiar. Yeah, they should look familiar. So on the left, we have David Axelrod. And Jeff, feel free to jump in and correct me on any of these if I get the information wrong. Oh, they do look like movie critics. That's funny, yes. Jerry's right, they are politicians. So over on the left, we have David Axelrod, and on the right, we have Karl Rove. Now, Karl Rove was the campaign manager for George W. Bush, President George W. Bush, and David Axelrod was the campaign manager for President Barack Obama. So politically, these two are on complete opposite sides of the spectrum. Now they're sitting here, this is a screen grab from, it's a masterclass, one of my favorite classes to view on masterclass. They talk about, they created a course together called Managing a Political Campaign. And these two are actually really great friends in real life. They found something that they have in common that provides more depth to their relationship than just superficial politics. Yes, they disagree with each other politically pretty much on everything. Each of them had a parent who had committed suicide. So I can't remember who initiated the contact when they found this out, but ever since they've become close friends. Now, what is your reaction hearing that they're close friends, but also on opposite aisles of politics and two extremes? They really disagree with each other in most cases. Hopeful, I like that, Michelle. Yes, it makes me feel hopeful as well. And this is one thing I want you to consider when thinking about maybe a challenging interpersonal relationship you have, is you can completely disagree with someone and still have a foundation of mutual respect and find something that you can bond on a deep level that kind of rises above any disagreements you might have from your perspective. All right, I'm loving these comments that are coming in. They agree to disagree. It's funny, during this master class, they kind of argue each other's point during the whole thing. Well, he would say this, and then, so David Axelrod would say, well, Karl would say this, and Karl would say, and David would say this. They know each other. They know each other's views so well that they can argue the other person's point to the other person's satisfaction. And this is a really, I think, profound idea in a friendship, interpersonal relationship, is that you understand the other person so well, you can argue their point and have them say, absolutely, that's exactly what I think and feel. All right, good comments coming in. I appreciate it. All right, we have another picture coming up. Has anyone watched the TV show Flashpoint? Deborah has. Oh, it's going so fast. I'm missing. Most people know. Well, I'm glad to introduce you to Flashpoint. It's a Canadian show, and we love Canadian shows in my family because they're so gentle and good. I think it's on Netflix. I'm not sure. If maybe it might be on Hulu. For those who know Flashpoint and have Netflix or Hulu, type it in and let people know where they can view it if they're interested. So Flashpoint, this is a Canadian SWAT team, and a typical episode goes like this. So at the beginning, you see a very intense situation. So, for example, there might be a man holding a gun to a doctor's head, and you're like, what is happening? It begins, I guess, with the flashpoint meaning the most intense point of an interaction. And then the rest of the episode is building up to how we get to that point. What I love about this show is, first of all, there's very few graphic images, which is nice and different than American television at times, but it humanizes every person in a scenario. So this team that you see on the screen will spend the episode getting to know the person who is instigating this difficult situation. And you come, by the end of the episode, you're on everybody's team. You're on supposedly the, like, who might have appeared to be the bad guy. You come to understand that their perspective so well that you don't want any bad thing to happen to any person. And I love that this intense police drama takes time to humanize each person in a scenario. So, is there anything about interpersonal relationships we can learn from Flashpoint? Jeanette says everyone has a story. Exactly. Love it. Any other thoughts? We need to learn about each other. Thanks, Nancy. I like that. And learning about each other takes time. I mean, in the context of the episode, it takes 45 minutes. Kelly says we need to work on humanizing each other. Yes, I agree. Barb says getting to know people before judging. You have to look a little farther to find what the story is. Good points. Yes. So while I do like the show, I mean, I guess if you're looking for one to binge, this might be your next one to put on your list. But the point I want you to take is humanizing each person takes time and is very, very valuable in improving interpersonal relationships. All right. So it's my personal belief that no one wants to be the difficult personality. Now there could be exceptions to this, but generally no one wants to be the difficult personality. No one wants to be the difficult coworker. And so as we move forward, I want you to keep this in mind. All right, let's make it a goal to humanize each person. And how can we do this? How can we humanize each of our coworkers? How can we humanize each person we interact with? And again, during coronavirus, I really believe it's more important that we take time to humanize each person. And humanizing each person is actually kind of difficult, I think, because it requires empathy for each person you meet, and it can feel exhausting. So, all right, we can humanize each other by listening, communicating. Thank you, Brenda. Great suggestion. Being caring, being a good listener, trying to understand another's perspective, really listening to what a person's saying. Do not overtalk, spend more time listening, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, don't be judgmental. These are all compassion for their situation, all great comments. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I'm glad there's such activity back and forth on this chat. Now, I want to take a side note, and I've mentioned coronavirus a few times, but I want you to keep in mind that during these last few weeks and probably the next few weeks, people are grieving. People are grieving the future and the security they thought they had. They're probably feeling loss. I mean, as we know, most people, like the economy is just in such a different place now. There's so many who have lost their jobs. And people are functioning out of a state of fear. I mean, only spend a couple of minutes watching any sort of news, and it's hard not to function in fear. And fuses are especially short right now. So granting extra compassion for yourself and recognizing you're feeling this too, and extending that to others, again, especially during coronavirus, will go a long way. All right, Nicole, you mentioned something about finding out about their lives outside of work. And I want to touch on that again later. So if I haven't touched on it, type this exact same comment in and we'll make sure, because I want to make sure to talk about that. All right, next question. You guys have done a phenomenal job answering the question so far. How do you like to be treated in your interpersonal relationships? Talk a little bit about this. Donna, I'm glad to know you can personally relate to grieving. Yes. We want respect, kindness, to be fair, to be treated fairly, that your opinion is respected. Yes, similar to how we began the webinar. I like this, respect and kindness, to be listened to. Now, let's consider what others might want from us. All right, here's a short list, and I'd love for you to add to it. What do others truly want from us? We know what we need from others: kindness, fairness, respect, listen to, empathy. What do you think others want from us? So my list includes acceptance, respect. Others want to feel that they're influencing us. And others mentioned before that they want to be listened to and their perspective respected. And I think that's what I mean by influenced by. And to be understood. One of my good friends says over and over again, to be understood is my love language. I love when someone understands me. Okay, to be in the moment with them. I like that, Bonnie. To be valued, well said. Listening ear. Offering compassion. So I want it to be pretty obvious that what we need from others is the same thing they want from us. Did I say that clearly? What others want from us is the same thing we want from others. And so this is where it kind of gets tricky. I really enjoy reading the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he says in there, Stephen Covey says in there, we need to first listen, and then with the intent to listen and not respond. So learning to listen to others before we feel like we can put our opinions forward. Okay, has anybody else read 7 Habits? And can you more clearly state what I was trying to say? It's a really great point in that book. So even if you read a summary of it online, that we need to, he says that we need to seek first to understand before we expect to be understood. Maybe, okay. I'll polish up on that and put it in a newsletter sometime. All right, next slide. Let's define a successful interpersonal relationship. First, the guidelines for what I want our successful interpersonal relationship to look like can only begin with I statements. As teachers and as coworkers, we can never define success as someone else's actions as the outcome. So first, I want to have you start, the sentence should start when defining successful interpersonal relationships. Success is when and then you fill in the blank. So what can success look like in interpersonal relationships? And so one example is I regularly chat with my coworkers and we just shoot the breeze, really low stakes conversations. That to me is when I am being successful in an interpersonal relationship. So it's not based on how they treat me. It's all on how I treat another person. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, let's see. Maybe this slide will help. Okay, what kind of person do you want to be in your interpersonal relationships? Here's my list. For me, it's important to be loyal and kind, consistent, empathetic. What other characteristics do you want to exemplify? Patience. Kelly says patience. I like that. Trusted, open, understanding. I like that. Caring, positive. Want to model respect? Yes. So I want you to take time and really consider what it is that you want to be in an interpersonal relationship. And then I want you to apply it to the difficult interpersonal relationship you might have. With our new definition of success being our own actions only, can your interpersonal relationship be successful if it's only based on your actions? So, anybody seen this movie? It makes me laugh really hard. Not generally an Amy Schumer fan, but this one, I thought she was brilliant. So the premise of this movie is that Amy Schumer was kind of had some difficulty feeling confident in her life, and then all of a sudden she went to Soul Cycle. Is that and she fell off the bike, hit her head, and all of a sudden she saw herself as super attractive, super confident. She thought she had changed to like very slender, sleek, and all of a sudden all of her relationships changed because of her perspective of herself. So change everything without changing anything. I want our perspective to change to all of our success is based on our own actions. All right, we're gonna move along here. I have another TV show. Now, when we consider life or consider other people's perspectives, remember that we really enjoy entertainment that comes from a lot of different perspectives. So, anybody seen this show? Does this look familiar? Yep, Jose knew. Blue Bloods. Yep. So this one seems more familiar to you, and I enjoy Blue Bloods because it offers multiple perspectives. So you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but here in the middle we have Frank Reagan, the iconic Tom Selleck. He is the police commissioner of New York City. To his right, our left, is his father, who is a former police commissioner of New York City, and then Frank's son, who is a police beat cop. And then over on our right, you have his daughter, who is, oh, I just lost the word. What does Erin do for work? She's the DA. Thanks, Jerry, you came to the rescue. And then Danny on the end, he's a detective. So they're all part of the New York City police system, and they all have different perspectives. Each episode, I would say, kind of tends to revolve around one storyline presented from all these different perspectives. Now, I want us to come to value everyone's different perspective because we appreciate it in entertainment, and I want us to appreciate it in our own lives. Now, okay, let me just take a glance. So, when it comes to increasing positive interactions, valuing other people's opinion, you know that would be valuable to you, and so therefore you can now understand that it would be valuable to somebody else. I want us to have really, truly strong positive interactions and deep-seated interactions, and that's why we went over all of these strategies of taking time to consider somebody else's perspective, changing our own definition of success, how we can treat others who don't agree with us at all. So I want to tell you a quick story. When I first started working at Boys and Girls Club, all of the sudden I became a person I didn't want to be. I was negative, I was mean to the kids, I was eager to leave each day, And I was like, wait a second, this is turning me into a teacher or at the time, a staff at Boys and Girls Club, into a person I don't want to be. I don't want to be mean to children. I want to enjoy my job. I want to enjoy working with other people. And so luckily, my dad was in the biz of helping people with behavior management, and he gave me the materials from Dr. Glenn Latham, and my coworker who I was working with at the time separately, he came across Glenn Latham and two strategies that Glenn talks about that really changed all of my teaching career, all of my time at Boys and Girls Club, and in my personal interpersonal interactions, were increasing positive interactions. Dr. Latham would say 8-to-1 is kind of the bare minimum of positive interactions to corrective interactions. And for example, with a student, if I ask a student to use a pencil instead of a pen, that's considered a negative interaction. Even though I'm just gently correcting, I now need to have 8 positive interactions to counteract that one, what we'll say is a negative interaction. And learning to ignore inconsequential behavior. This is huge because there are so many things about what's happening around us that other people do that can drive us crazy. But learning to let that go, and that is not something we need to worry about, will free us from our own selves being driven crazy. Now, one way that this was a long time ago, I had a friend who, she had this personal habit that just drove me bonkers. For some reason, it really bothered me. It doesn't matter what it was. It was a statement she would say regularly. And for some reason, it just like grated on me. So what I did is, to help me learn to ignore it, I first made it a bigger deal. So every time she said it, I would give myself an M&M. And so I would count how many times she said it. So I looked forward to every time she said this phrase, because that means I got M&Ms. And so over time, all of a sudden the phrase didn't bother me so much because I was counting it, and then it just became less and less as time went on. And then I could learn to ignore it. It didn't bother me so much. On the same token, increasing positive interactions was helpful for me because all of a sudden people began to change around me, but no one was changing, just my perspective, like Amy Schumer. My perspective was changing. Everybody was being so pleasant because I was looking for it and noticing it. One way to start counting our positive interactions is the 30 bean method. I didn't include this in the slides, but I want to touch on it before we wrap up. So you can take 30 beans, if they're black beans, uncooked black beans or lentils or whatever, stick them in your pocket and start counting off positive interactions each day. Every time you have a positive interaction, it can be with one person or a group of people, move one bean from one pocket to the next pocket. And you want to do that 3 times, so 90 positive interactions throughout the day with someone. This will help transform your perspective of another individual to all the things they're doing right instead of the things they're doing wrong. So how could you test if your relationships are in good standing? Just a couple of quick ideas. If a person just wants to be near you, like they come into your office during breaks, or they want to sit by you at a function, you know your relationship's in good standing because we want to be near those who help us feel safe. They will do what you ask. So this is where some of the comments that I've seen are, no one does what their jobs are supposed to be. Increase your positive interactions with that person, and all of a sudden, if you ask somebody to do something, they'll do it right away. And then 3, they want to make your life easier. All right, so will all of this be worth the work? We've talked a lot about different strategies of how to see a person in a different way, how to humanize them, how to increase our positive interactions. And all I can say is, was the 6 hours of Pride and Prejudice worth the ending? So in in fashion of the other webinars we've had, what would you like next week's topic to cover? Be sure to let us know in the comments. And as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be on this webinar. We will post the webinar at study.org/webinars by the end of the day. You'll also have the handouts. And so we'll send out an email with that link. And thanks again for joining us. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out to someone at the Study staff, or my email is jessica@study.org. All right. Thank you and have a good day.
So,